Hi, welcome back to another week of We Just Talking. I'm so happy, as always, to have everyone here watching with us. Welcome to the new people who have not been here before. Welcome back to my regular watchers and talkers. Today, I have a special guest with me, Miss Alexis Jones. I met her through church, and she has such a powerful story of triumph and overcoming. And I just felt like the Lord placed it on my heart that I should have her on here today. So, Miss Alexis Jones is our guest. So, help me welcome her to the platform. All right, Alexis, good morning. Welcome to We Just Talking. I'm so happy that you said yes today.
Good morning.
So, I was just sharing before I brought you in here that we met through church and that you just have an awesome story that you're going to share, a story of just triumph and faith and trusting in God. And so I'm so honored that you said yes, that you would share. And so before we get into it, kind of introduce yourself a little bit to the talkers.
Hi. Well, she just said it. My name's Alexis. I find this question so I don't know. Anytime you do anything, and I've done a few things, people are always like, who are you? Introduce
Yeah.
yourself. And I'm like, I never know what to say. I don't know. So I'm trying to navigate and figure out, I don't know if I'm just trying to be unique, but what do I want to say? And the one thing that I always say is like Alexis, that has been said. I'll say what I do, right? I'm in school for theology. I am finishing my undergrad this year after dropping out a few years ago, and then I'm gonna continue on to get my doctorate. Um, and I don't know, I think that's like the best part for me.
It's actually a loaded question
Right?
because I feel the same way. When people are like, tell me about yourself, and all I can say is, well, I'm just Tia and I have two sisters. Like, I don't know. It's not easy because there's so many things that make us up, but most of them are kind of boring if we really think about it. Like, I go to work every day. I don't know. I'm a child of God. How about that? How about that part? I am a child of God.
Like, that's the best I
Yeah.
got for me. I follow
Yeah.
Jesus. And I don't know, it changes so much that I don't know if I want to, that's why I said I'm figuring out. I don't know if I ever want to be like, well, I do this, I'm an author. I'm just living. I'm just living
Yes.
genuinely. I have fun while I do it. People think I'm pretty darn funny. I think I am too. And so who I am is I'm funny. I have a great big personality. Even though there's no big or small personalities, everybody has their own. But I have a personality that's very unique and fun. And
Yeah.
I do whatever I do at the time that God is telling me to do it. If He ain't telling me to do it, then I don't do that no more. So right
Yes.
now I'm in school, I work a job, and I do speaking on the side. I just got back into speaking this year after 3 years of not doing it and was previously doing it professionally. I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, my life just changes so much that
Yeah.
I'm doing whatever I'm doing when I'm doing it.
And you know what? It's going to continue. It's going to continue to change because you're still very young, not very young. Let me not say you're a child, okay? You're still young. And so you still have room to figure out what, where, when, how. And that's the joy. That's the joy of being where you are. And the Lord has already got you on a path and you're already listening and doing what He is prompting you to do. So it's just so the road ahead is just so big. Like it's just
I never
wide
know what to
open.
say. That's
Yeah.
why I never know what to say. And I think a part of that is becoming comfortable with what you see ahead. And so then you're like, well, how do I communicate that? How do I communicate that? What do people think when you communicate that, right? Like I could say all the things that I'm gonna do, and then I'll be talking for a minute. And so that's why I'm like, okay, well, maybe in certain settings, I've seen where people say, depending on where you are or what it is that you're doing in that moment, then you can change what you're saying. And it's not like you're saying the wrong things, but you're saying parts that are
Mm-hmm.
applicable to where you are in that moment. And I think that's very smart. But I also am like, I just don't even know if I want to do that. So I think just
Yes.
figuring out, I literally answer this question the same way every time that I'm asked. The last time I did a podcast, I said the same things. I was like, listen, child, I'm here and I'm living with Jesus. And if that sounds spiritual, great.
Yes, that part. Because
Great.
that's the truth. That's it.
Great. Because I've
Yes.
tired of people saying, I don't want to be too spiritual. Be.
Yes.
Please, please. If you said you was talking to Jesus, that's not too spiritual. If you said you're just doing whatever you be, please. And that's all I got. That's who I am. If I
And
decide
that's
to,
what he calls us to
and
be, right? Like, I'm reading a book right now. We're reading The Secret of the Secret Place. And
love that book.
yeah, yeah, so
Oh,
we're reading it. And so I just started and I have read chapters 1 through 3. And I was like, I think I need to go back and reread it because the chapters are very short. They're very
yep.
short chapters. And so if you're just like trying to read it just to
Read
read
it.
it, then you're not going to catch it. And so like last night I sat down and I reread and like actually took notes and thought, and it was talking about like having that secret place with the Lord. And you're saying if you were just talking to Jesus, then you were just talking to Jesus. And there's nothing wrong with that because he calls us into that and he wants us to talk to him and spend time with him and to listen. So what's the problem?
It's so normal. I was watching a podcast recently, and the girl, all she was expressing through her story was, I used to get in the car and I used to call people all the time. And she was just trying to tell us that God took her through that season before she got married of stop calling people, learn how to be alone. And she said, not to be too spiritual, but he wanted me to just speak to him when I was in the car. And I thought, I don't think she thought it was too spiritual. I think the fact that people have to preface that because the Christian culture makes you think talking to God, like for her to think that saying talking in the car with God, hey, I don't want to be too spiritual, that lets me know that we don't have a comfortability with being married to God, but only like believing in God. Because if I said
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to my husband every time I got in the car, they'd be like, girl,
It'd
you
be no
love
problem.
me, go off, queen.
Yes.
But it's the same thing. And I'm learning that we don't have that comfortability. And I can completely understand why. But what that really looks like being married to God is not too spiritual. That's what the Bible tells us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't live it out as much as we say that we believe. Like, I'm the bride of Christ.
Yeah.
Well, if you are,
Then you get in the car and talk to him.
if you
Yes.
are,
Mm-hmm.
if we are, then we have to do those things. Like I used to call people in the car, and God said, every time you get off, let's just talk, decompress and debrief the day with me. Because
Yeah.
that's what I would do if I had a man. I call him, sit in the
Mm-hmm.
car then and decompress every day after work. The first person, so God, let me just today was long. He didn't
Yeah.
even be saying nothing most times back. But it was
Yeah.
him expressing to me, I want more from you out of the marriage, the relationship that we have. Yeah, I was just watching that podcast and I thought, that's not
Well,
spiritual.
it's interesting that you say that because I feel like the Lord is kind of talking to me about that because I go to work. I have to be at work at 7 a.m. So I'm driving to work at like 6:30, 6:20 to 6:30. And I would listen to podcasts. Sometimes I listen to sermons. Sometimes I'm talking to friends on Marco Polo. And then some mornings he's like, I need you to just be silent with me on your way to work and start the day that way. Because when I walk into work, I already know it's chaos. Because dealing in customer service and sales, it's chaos. You don't know who you're going to be dealing with. So having that time in the morning on my way in where I'm not hearing all the noise of other people, even if it is just a sermon, which there's nothing wrong. We should listen to sermons. We should listen to edifying things, but sometimes it's other people's voices that we're hearing in the sermons, and we don't need to hear that. We need to be able to hear what the Lord is saying to us. And that's one thing in that book that it was saying, like sometimes we'll be in the silence, in the quiet. Jesus or the Holy Spirit is not always speaking to us constantly, right? I mean, he's always talking, but sometimes we just need to sit in reverence and in the silence so that when he is speaking to us directly, we don't miss it. So look, we get into it before we need to get into it. Let's start out and let's pray. Let's pray and then actually let's read the Bible verse. So the Bible verse, and let me put my Bible. Girl, it's upside down. Jesus, Jesus help me this morning. It's Saturday. It is Saturday morning. The Bible verse is, and I'm gonna get to it, Revelations 12:11. And it says, and they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. So that is the Bible verse of the season, Revelation 12:11. And they were overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And so you're going to share today. You're going to join in with all the other people in sharing what the Lord has taught you, carried you through, and leading you into, because I know you're going to get into that too. So let's pray. And then, yeah, let's get back into it. So, dear Lord, we thank you today, Father. Before we ask for anything, we just want to say thank you. We want to praise you because you are so worthy of every praise. You are worthy of our adoration and of all our love. And we thank you for that, Jesus. We thank you that you saved us, Father. We thank you that you woke us up today and allowed us to sit here and have this time, Father. Lord, I pray that you touch Alexis this morning, Father. I pray that you give her boldness, Father. I pray that you give her clarity, Father, that she speak directly to someone that is listening to this today, Father. Lord, I pray for the people that will hear this, Father, that if they are walking through a similar season or if they are walking through something that they hear today, Father, that they will find hope, that they will find love, that they will not feel alone or unseen, but feel your presence with them, Father. And we praise you because we know that you are more than able. In Jesus' precious name, amen. So, yes, yes, yes.
Amen.
Let the church say. So, yes, because I was like, we getting this podcast started before we get the podcast started. And I love that. I love that. And one of the things before you get into it, going back to what you were saying about how people preface by saying, I don't want to be too spiritual. It's because the world that we live in, everybody gets turned off by church, right? And so we have to preface it because we have to make it smaller. But there's no reason that we should be making our God smaller because he's huge, he's big, he's everywhere. And so we shouldn't be scared of offending people or stepping on people's toes by saying, well, I'm going to talk about Jesus, but I don't mean to talk about Jesus. But no, we're boldly talking and declaring, and that's what this space is for. So I'm about to let you boldly declare what the Lord has done for you
Well, God is good.
all the
Um,
time.
I love for one that scripture, not because I've sat with it in my own time, just because
Mm-hmm.
it's read it and I loved it. Um, but I love that the end, of course, which goes into what you're having everyone do, is that it was by the testimony. And so last year, this is my preview for my story. Last year, I was in a class, like I said, I'm in school, and the class was for what was it for? Preaching, sermon writing, all that. So I wrote my first sermon, and it was based on the connection of Jesus's first miracle to his last miracle. I don't have time to go into it, but they're completely connected. They're completely connected.
We're going to
And
talk about
so
that. We'll have to talk about that another time.
they're completely connected. And in it, I talked about how what I learned while I was studying to write the sermon was that everybody always says, like, I'm waiting on a miracle. I'm waiting on a miracle. And God was like, you're not waiting on nothing. You're always living and engaging in a miracle, within the miracle, right? Because I think over time, when we're the way that we see in church, the way that we encounter other believers, it's like, oh, I got a car. That was the miracle. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, oh, she was waiting on it. Miss Girl didn't have no car. Now she got a car. Evidence is that you were waiting. But God was like, that's not a miracle. That's not a testimony. And it's not that it is not from God specifically, but it's that the miracle in Jesus turning water into wine wasn't, he turned water into wine. It
Mm-hmm.
was the fact that you could look into that and see how it was connected to his final thing that he did on the cross, which lets us know that miracles aren't what you got or what exactly like you saw on face value what happened, but it's what's in the details. It's how you got there. It's the formation of the entire thing. And so I looked at over time, like what I talked about in my sermon was I did an illustration with actual wine and I poured all this water in it and it was like super light pink. And I said, when we tell our testimony and we say, my testimony is that I got a new car and I got a new house and like, period. And the reality is that if you say that to somebody who's not a believer, all right, girl, you drove up to the dealership and got a car because
Yeah.
you made money at your job, because you
Yeah.
got the job, because you interviewed. It sounds so practical. And so if you're talking to the wrong person, or not the wrong person, but somebody who is the right person, but in a different context, it's like, Okay, there's a practical, logical explanation to how that happened for you. And I said, if we keep talking like that, as if the miracle is what you got, then we're giving people diluted things. And ain't nobody's pouring a glass of wine, then pouring a gallon of water in it and say, ready to drink.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that. And so I had to learn and realize that I'm always living out a miracle. I'm never waiting on anything. And if I believe that, then I would look into what's happening so I can have something to testify about.
Yes.
It's how it'll be as I share, right? Like I'm in this apartment. That's pretty much
Yes.
the story I'm going to talk about. I'm in this apartment, but this is not the miracle. I was always living in the miracle of what this is. And because I know that, and I learned that when I was homeless, I can now talk about it in a way that you're not going to chalk this up to logic. It's
Right?
God or it's God. And so I just wanted to say that prior to, just for also the people who are listening and you have opportunities to share your testimony, whatever it is that you got, it's not enough. You can't
Yes.
just say that. That's not enough. So like it forces us to lean in to God every day, like you talked about with that book, really sitting with him, really leaning in so I can have something to say of substance that doesn't look like light pink, washed down wine that nobody who likes wine is going to pair with their steak.
Yes.
They're not having it.
Yeah.
So, let's get into it.
Let's get into it, girl.
I think I'm trying to it's like when you like, where do I start? I'm obviously new to Texas. I think I will start by saying I dropped out of college in 2019.
Okay.
And I feel like after I dropped out, life started going like just down. And I remember when I was thinking about dropping out and I was like, I think this is God. But all my life, like I was going to school. I became an RA because I was like, I don't want to go back home. I got to get this free room. I became an RA. I got the next level position job that they had the following year. And I dropped out, let go of that position and everything. And I remember being like, I think this is God, but so I'm going to do it. And everybody was like, no, you have scholarships, you have all this stuff. That doesn't make sense for you to drop out. That's not like God wouldn't tell you that. I said, okay, cool. I'm gonna stay in school. I signed up for classes. And I remember the last day that you had to drop the classes, I was sitting at some kind of like worship event. And it was like probably just a few hours before you could drop them, before you still had to pay the money.
Yeah.
And it was like I was reminded, drop those classes. And I felt like I was like, that was God. I'm dropping them classes. I'm leaving school. So I stayed in school for 2 more months because I was an RA. So I had to fulfill my duties. And then I drop out. I moved back home. That was a different experience because I just dropped out. Nobody really likes the person who just dropped out and they saying God told them. And it's like, that don't even make sense. Whatever. So I moved home. I'm there for about 2 months. I abruptly move out. I stay with my aunt for maybe 7 months. I shared a bed, shared everything. I grew up fortunate, right? Like I had a room, I had a bathroom. I might have shared the bathroom, but fortune, okay?
Yeah.
And for the first time I had to share a bed. I had no privacy because when you share a bed, you're not talking to nobody at night. You're not, because the other person can hear everything you're saying. You can't
Yeah.
beg. I got to go to the car if I want to talk about, where my life is without trying to be offensive to, the people who are giving me an opportunity to stay in their home, all these things. And so I had that new experience and still experiencing the challenges of what it was like to drop out. Because at this point, it's like, what are you going to do with your life? You're not, the lady I was actually working for when I dropped out, I was a nanny at the time. And she was like, you're not going to be successful as a Black woman if you drop out. It's just, and I remember telling her, well, queen, I guess we gonna see. And she was just like, well, I hope your determination is what gets you out of that reality. But like, and I had to learn to let that go. She wasn't trying to be malicious, but her belief was, you're Black. You don't go to school, you will have no life. And
Was
so
she also?
she was Black, she was Portuguese, married to a white man.
Okay.
And so, of course, she probably got to see how much was offered to him versus her. And he had a good job. And even probably seeing how her kids were treated, being mixed kids. So her experience was not only her actual family.
Yeah.
And so
it was not coming, like you say, from a place of malice, but probably an older voice speaking, thinking that she's giving you sound advice.
Yes. To try to prevent me from what she probably experienced.
Yeah.
And when you work for someone's family, if it's a great family, they see you as a part of their family, right? Like they have kids
Hmm.
younger and you're younger as well. So it's kind of like, you're not my kid, but you're younger, you're in college, you're here. I'm speaking to you from like a mothering standpoint because I also have.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I was never like mad at her, but I realized how much it made me think that I was not going to do anything in life because that wasn't the only voice that was saying, if you don't go to school, there's nothing for you.
Yeah.
Um, and so my plan was never to go back because I hadn't heard God tell me to go back to school or anything. And I said, I don't know what y'all talking about. But it's gonna happen for me, school or not. And I'm a person, even though I am back in school, I believe that if you go to school, let it be because that's what's for your life. I don't think my life would have been no greater or no worser if I had school or not. If the plan and the design for my life was for me not to be in school, I would have been fine. It's clearly
Hmm.
for me to be in school, and I'm still going to be fine. And so I went through that period for about 3 years. Not being in school, working at my business, like doing speaking, and I wasn't making that much money. I was making a little money here and there when I did get paid, and ended up moving into a place, got a roommate. COVID happened. We got laid off from our jobs, and then I just quit because we weren't working. They weren't paying us. It's not like they were laying us off and paying us. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna quit. I'm gonna pursue my business. I had made $1,000 in a week from my sales, and I was like, oh yeah, I've hit it. I'm here. I never made $1,000 and something dollars in 7 days. Like, this the one. I found my thing. So I kept
Yeah.
doing my thing. My thing didn't keep doing its thing. And
Yes.
so I went into a long season of just not having no money. And I had an amazing roommate at the time. So if I didn't have the money, she would front me and just make me pay her back and everything like that. I had an amazing, amazing roommate. Um, and that was even harder because now it's like, not only did you drop out, you don't got no job. And you talking about you're pursuing entrepreneurship and you don't want to work. You just want to lay on your behind. You just want to, and I'm like, I'm just trying to follow Jesus. I swear. Oh my God. So then I finally get a job like a year and a half later.
Oh man.
I feel called to get a job. And at this point, when I go to get a job, I get a nannying job within, I think, like 4 days. Like I get a job like immediately. And
Yeah.
so I knew it was the right time for me. Um, and then I get the job, I work the jobs. God says, okay, you're gonna move to Dallas. Okay. I was thinking more like Alpharetta, Georgia. I was thinking about all the cities in Georgia that I could stay in. I was like, ooh, 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 because my
Yeah.
roommate was in the house. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds nice. That sounds nice. And I'm just driving in the car, and God was like, yeah, Dallas. And I was
Dallas.
like, oh, that's still happening. Because I had visited Dallas before, believed the Lord told me to move here. But in that season of my life, which was 2020, I was getting so many things wrong. Oh, so many things wrong. It was the most traumatic, one of the most traumatic times in my life where like someone was like saying I was like a cult leader because my friends were like listening to what I was saying. I mean, it was a whole thing. So at this point,
Wow.
when that season was over, everything I wrote down that I thought was God, I ripped it all up. I said, don't worry about it. Nothing is from you. I didn't even want to say, God, which one is from you, which one is not. At this point, I can't hear from God. So it don't matter which one, which who. I'm ripping it all up, and then I'm gonna
Oh
just keep
wow.
in my life, and I will figure something out later. So when he said Dallas, I said, oh, so that
So
was
let
it.
me ask you this, Alexis, because we know that the Lord is not the author of confusion. And so it sounds like in 2020, there was a lot of confusion, right?
Oh my.
A lot of confusion. So what voices were speaking to you though? Because you were speaking to people. What
Mm-hmm.
was speaking? What were you feeding your spirit with during that time?
I think that so there's parts of the story that I think were God, right? We a big part of the story was we traveled to Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna be on Transformation Church. We think we're gonna be on the service about how we traveled here. All this,
Yeah.
all of that wasn't God, right? But when we got to Tulsa, there was things like we met a lady who was like in an abusive relationship, and we happened to be stopped behind her car and she needed gas and food. We met a guy who didn't have a plane ticket to get home, and we scraped up what we had and gave it to him. We met another guy who was thinking about committing suicide had we not shown back up. So we ate there, we said, we're going to come back and see you. We really forgot about him, honestly.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was later in the day, and it was like somebody remembered, we told that boy we were going to go back and eat there with him again. And it was after we went back, whatever, that the Holy Spirit was like, he would have committed suicide if y'all hadn't shown up. Because
Wow.
it was like a thing of he was waiting to see would somebody else leave him. And so there was things that happened that was God. To this day, I believe he told us to go there. It was all the little details that for me, I think came from my misconception about who God was. So I came from having daddy issues, that I'm still unraveling and realizing how that really impacts your relationship with God, or
Yes.
parental issues, period, right? But for
Period.
men are supposed to be the image of God first in the
Yes.
home. And so in my head, I thought I didn't have my dad who was there doing what he should have done. Now I came and I'm serving you. So I'm thinking you should just do everything under the sun for me. Kind of like when you feel bad for a kid that been through a lot and you like, so now I got to buy the kid everything because they was in foster care, and people who know
Just
about,
everything.
oh, I'm not saying, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you kind of like overdo it, but it's like people who are in those positions, they still need discipline. They still need, you don't feel so bad that you think, well, I'm gonna just give you everything though, because now you've lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw God as, well, I was like an orphan, right? Outside of, because I wasn't living for God. I believed in him always, but I didn't have a relationship. So now I've come to you. You the man that
Yes.
they say is the man of the man of the man. So feel bad for me. Give me
I
everything in
deserve.
my brain, yes, that I deserve. Make it happen. Let me be on the service. Let me get all this money. Let me do all these things because you feel bad for me, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that God doesn't, have the heart for it. But he said, I don't just have the heart for it, I have the wisdom for it. I'm not
Yes.
doing it. That's not going to give you what you think you need to heal your trauma. And
Yeah.
so that's what was speaking to me, was my misconception of God. Not that I was
Mm.
entertaining any demonic anything. It was just the misconception of who he was because I didn't understand who he was.
Well, and that's interesting. And I think that's why the church gets like a bad reputation, because you hear all these people tell about, I got saved, and then everything is just fine. Look, I'm getting all this money. I'm standing up here talking to you. I have this big house. I'm driving this nice car. And then so we start to correlate all this stuff over here with God. And so if I'm following you how I think I should be, then you need to give me what they got,
Well,
right?
yeah,
This is
that's
what it looks like. That's it, right? And so that is, I feel like, where we drop the ball when we start to talk about who God is, because that's not
and
like, yeah,
that's where
go
the thing with the miracle comes in.
yes,
Because if I get up there and I say, I got a car, I got a house, as for me, I ain't gonna speak for nobody. Me, I don't care. I don't care that you got a house. I don't care that you got a car. Why? How? What? Whom? And so sometimes because we incorrectly tell our testimony, and I'm not saying people are doing it maliciously. There
yeah,
is sometimes just that ignorance, which is just not knowing something. Sometimes when we do that, we're giving people a reason to idolize something. I don't want to be a crutch.
yeah,
It, if you don't lean into the suffering or the seasons that you're in to understand what God is doing before he brings you something,
yes,
and you are helping people develop idols for the something, whether you know it or not, it is what it
yeah,
is. We just call
yeah,
a spade a spade. And I don't want to do that anymore, which and so I think that sure what I heard in the church could have played a part. And then it was my trauma.
yeah.
And it's what I think. I'm a human. We think that we know how to heal trauma.
We don't.
We don't.
Mm.
We don't, but God is so wise that he does. And he let me go through that. He let me look stupid. Oh my God, I look so dumb. I think I just recovered from that trauma. I mean, perhaps I'm fully recovered, but the fact that I'm like, okay, I can't hear God. I can't. That went on. I was in Texas feeling that way. That was last year.
Yeah,
Was, but he allowed me to, because not only did it, I had to go through the process with him to regain or make the new thing or whatever, but I also had to see what redemption looked like
yeah,
through just who he was. So yes, that happens 2020. Nah, right? So I'm like, okay, God, you really want me in Dallas. I move here. I don't have a job. I had a job actually, had a job lined up, a family. They pull out last minute, and I was like, well, what the heck? And so then I was like, well, do I apply for another family? And I lost the taste for nannying in my heart. And I
Mm,
and I was like, God, I've never felt this way. Whenever I felt like I shouldn't do something, or like, I don't know, I just kind of like, you just know.
yeah.
But in my heart, I completely felt like I was started telling families, I used to say, so I would love to serve your family. And I was telling the truth. I no longer meant that. And so I would say, I'll hear from you soon. I wouldn't say,
Hmm.
look forward to hearing from you. I wouldn't say, because I no longer felt any happiness about coming to serve you.
Oh, wow.
Just but if you hire me, I do need a job, but I don't want to lie to you. But I'm also
Hmm.
sound nice. I want to get hired. But I know I started to feel like if I kept saying that, I was going to be lying because I didn't want to do it anymore. So I sat with God, took that, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to work. I'm going to work on my business again. That I had been working on simultaneously throughout all this time.
Yeah.
So I've been trying at entrepreneurship since I was probably throughout college, everything. I used to speak in college. I've probably been doing it since I was 18 or 17 or 18, and I'm 24 now. So I've been trying
Hmm.
out entrepreneurship for 6 or 7 years. So what I already have the trauma and the pain from that of I've done all the right things. I was going to the conferences. I was serving my people say serve your way. Oh, I was serving people to get in for free. I would do over and beyond. I would go to all their stuff. They never mentored me. I never got to this pinnacle where I thought I'm doing the right stuff. It's not happening for me. So I was like, you know what? I'm trying it again. Now again, I look stupid. You done tried before talking about God told you not to work and you broke, couldn't buy tissue. I was just broke, had food stamps. I said I would never be on food stamps. And I realized you need to sit your prideful. I'm not gonna have no food stamps. I remember when I first moved into my first apartment, they came around with this thing and they said, this is like a resource, but it's only for people who are on government assistance. I said, oh, well, we don't have that. I said it in the nicest way. But in here, I was like, oh, we ain't got that. We don't get none of
Hmm.
that. Don't
We
pass
don't
them
need that.
anywhere at the other
We're
houses.
better than that. We
Put
don't
them
need
at
it.
the other houses. We don't.
Yeah.
I was on food stamps. Thank you.
You can
Um,
eat well on food stamps.
you
Okay.
can eat well, and being on food stamps
Yeah.
is not a shame. Baby, get them food stamps.
Yeah.
Don't be hungry because you want to be prideful.
Yes.
Well, then apply. And the food stamp system in Atlanta is good. The food stamp system out here, I don't like it.
Hmm.
So I had food stamps when I ended up moving here too later on. They only give it to you for like 2 months or something. I don't know. I don't like it out here. But I moved here, don't have a job, broke. I moved out here with not even enough money. Um, because I was giving as well, but I was giving above my tithe and God hadn't called me to yet. But I thought I had to prove something to him with my resources and made myself think he told me to. So I moved here with less than what I
Hmm.
have had. Also, wasn't saving my money well because after being broke, when you get a little money, you feel like you got to redeem what you missed out on once you get something. So didn't
Yes.
save as much. So the thing was, I was never gonna work when I first got here, and I was gonna struggle, but I struggled more than I had to because I was trying to correct the trauma from being broke before. I put myself at a worse off position than I had to be.
Yeah.
Um, so I get here, I pay my rent, whatever. Then I don't have no money, so I can't pay my rent no more. So I don't pay my rent for. I was almost in my apartment for a year. I paid out of my own money 1 month, one
What?
and a half months, 1.5, 1.5. Uh,
Okay.
so I'm like, God, whoa, 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 whoa. Like I remember the first eviction notice. I don't know if I ever cried. I can remember the 2 times in my life that I've cried the worst. That
Yeah.
was one of the two, because now I felt like there is no way. There is no way you're doing this to me. And I remember someone telling me when I first moved here, just because you were obedient, don't think God has to open up the floodgates of heaven for you. And I remember thinking, yeah, maybe not. He didn't do that for you. He gonna do
But for
that for
me,
me. No,
as
he's
for me
not.
in my house.
As for me and mine. And the thing is, I think the reality is he does open the floodgates of heaven, right? But it's with what he desires. And I thought because I was obedient, my business about to flourish. I'm about to get at it. I'm about to do it. And it's just gonna all start going like this for me. And
Yeah.
it did not. And it just kept going like this. And I kept getting eviction notices. I stopped crying after a while because God said, you're not moving. So I stopped crying.
Mm.
I told them, I said, hey, I don't want to disrespect y'all, but I'm not packing because like I heard something different than what y'all saying.
Yeah.
But I don't be disrespectful. So if I have to, I will. But I'm just letting you know I'm not packing. Now, if they would have responded and said, pack stuff now, we can kick you out. Okay, God, you ain't got to worry about it. But I started to honor what I believe the Lord was saying to me. I'm not going to get evicted. Okay, great. I'm not packing. Okay, great. I'm not. And so I got assistance here and there, got on food stamps, whatever. Still was broke.
Yeah.
Very broke. Very broke. And realizing more how much insecurities I had around money. When you don't have money and you feel like everybody is looking at you like, look at that brokey. She dressed broke, she looked broke. Don't look a
Yeah.
lick of broke, but you think that everybody knows you're broke. No matter
Yeah.
if you get a dollar drink or not, nobody knows if you're broke or rich when you buy a drink for $1.
Yeah.
Only you know. But when you sit there, you're thinking, oh my God, they know that I'm eating off the dollar menu because I'm broke. Some people just like the dollar menu.
That's
Be
it.
rich and frugal. And so I realized how insecure I was through all that. Go through that. I end up moving out of my apartment because I get another eviction notice. And again, I was like, I'm not tripping because I'm not moving. I'm gonna be here till my lease is up. And God said to me, I told you you would never get evicted, but I didn't tell you that there wasn't an appointed time for you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It was when he told me. It wasn't because they thought they was telling me. It was because God said, you are now leaving. So
Okay.
I move out a week later. And then I become homeless. I stayed with somebody for a week. I stayed with somebody for 3 months. And then the last month and a half that I was homeless, I stayed at 12 places, I think. Hotel
Wow.
at nights that people would give me. I went back home for a couple of nights so I could have somewhere to stay, which I flew back to Georgia. So I still had a job, was still making money. I just don't have no house. And I owe the
Mm-hmm.
people $12,000 because not only did I not owe them that much, but I got all these fees that I got to pay just because I owed them. And then they placed it as an eviction, even though I was not forcefully, I wasn't anything. I moved out willingly. It wasn't a
Yeah.
whole process, but that's how they marked it. Then I had to pay for moving out. You got to pay $3,000 just for leaving.
Yeah.
I don't even owe that much, but I owe way more. So I can't get a place really. And
Yeah.
so I'm making money at work, but who's
But you
gonna
got to
give?
pay this debt.
And we'll get to that, but I haven't paid the debt. Um,
Jesus.
and I'm in this one. I haven't paid the debt. And so I have this debt. I'm living around. I'm like, this is not real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not real. And I'm thinking at the same time, what did I do wrong? What did I do? What did I do? I did something. I don't know if this happened when I in childhood or what, but I had this thing where I always had something I did. It's something I did. If somebody was upset or said something to me, I'm thinking, well, what did I do to them? I did something because that's the only reason why they would do that. And I had to learn you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just because you go through certain things does not mean you did it. I didn't do nothing to become homeless. People think, because again, this whole period of I'm dropping out to all the way where I'm at, people are thinking, you keep saying God is telling you this. If that's the case, why don't you have more money? If that's the case, why don't you have a job? If that's the case, because we've heard so much, again, what miracles look like, but Jesus died on a cross. Because
Mm-hmm.
then God should have took him off that cross. If it
Yeah.
was supposed to look like him on the cross and then he like disappeared and it's like, oh my God, son of God,
Yeah.
then what would have happened? And so this whole, it just keeps going. People are like, no, God didn't tell you to get that place. It was too expensive. And I'm like, I can't explain it. I know I was supposed to live there. I don't know what the spiritual ramifications of it is. There's something with like somebody who honors God being somewhere, how it fights off demons. I still don't know how it works, but I knew it was God.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to tell y'all, I know I'm in debt now. So it still looked like that wasn't God. That was, I'm like, I'm telling y'all, it was. I can't prove it to you though. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm going through all of this. I'm homeless. I'm looking, but I'm like, I'm still getting up. I'm still serving at church. At that time, I was on a team where I was having to be at church at 6 a.m. every week, do manual labor. I'm showing up. I'm doing that. I'm serving at another organization as well on the worship team. So I'm still going there. I'm still going to work loving on these people kids because where I work is with the family, loving on these people kids. I'm still in school. And I'm telling teachers, listen, I just became homeless. Please give me 2 more days for my work. I have never, I don't want to say ever, but when I got in school, the grace of God was bananas to me because I could say like, this just happened. They would be like, I'll give you a week. And I didn't think, I don't know, that wasn't normal to me, right? I was like, just
Yeah.
push. So what, you homeless? You got to do that homework. No, baby, ask for a day. You need a day to cry. You don't got no sleep. You
Yeah.
gotta every which way at everybody's house. So now I'm living by other people's rules too. I was just
Yeah.
living alone. So it's like, oh my God, can't close the fridge too loud. Okay, wait, can I do this? Can I do that? And so I'm trying to get a place this whole time that I was homeless for 5 months. Somebody told me, you're not gonna get a place. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Nobody's gonna rent to you. You have a balance. Sorry. And
Yeah.
God told me, you're gonna get a place. But when they told me I wasn't, I was like, godly. I mean, I think I heard God because I'm still dealing with the trauma of 2020. I think, okay, well, maybe I didn't hear God. Maybe it's not, maybe I'm really not, because God said to me, you're gonna, I said, so when am I gonna move? He said the 1st. So I'm like, ooh, July 1st, because it was June. July 1st. Well, I didn't get a
Mhm.
place on July 1st. I actually applied to a place and didn't get approved because of the
Mhm.
balance.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, the lady said I can't get nowhere. Then you said the 1st, but the 1st done passed. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep looking though. I'm gonna keep looking because either God said what he said and it'll happen or it won't. The least I can
Yeah.
do is the places you already don't got nowhere to live, but you got time that you can't be wasting. Go look at some places. So I
Yeah.
found another place where I live and I apply. And I was so nervous because I'm like, what do I do? Do I get my mom to get me a place? But I didn't feel like that was ethical unless I told them. I'm really like big on not swindling, not being unethical. If somebody
Yeah.
was gonna put the name on a place for me, I was gonna tell them, hey, will y'all let this happen? Can my mom do it? I just didn't feel good about doing it and lying or
Yeah.
because I got advice to, just say this or say that. I'm like, I can't lie, I
Yeah.
can't do anything. If God don't get it for me, then I just won't have it.
Yeah.
And I apply here, I get approved. I move into an apartment that's not this one because somewhere me and the girl was confused and she put me on an apartment that I was like, I never even asked for that. And it didn't look nothing like this one. And I was like, I don't want this. So I had to live there. So that felt like a hit because I'm like, God, I done got a place. Then I walk in and it's not even what I was looking for. It just things, I'm like, things keep happening. Like, can I just get what you said without all this extra stuff? And I had to deal with that as well. So I lived there for about 2 weeks. And they're like, okay, here's some other apartment options. This was the apartment option and it was for the 1st.
Uh-huh.
And because I moved in early, I got more money off my rent, more than what they would have gave me had it been August. I got like an extra 300 off. Like, and this is where, just to go back to that miracle thing, if I just say I got an apartment, but I don't tell you that God made sure I moved into an apartment on the 22nd, even though it was the wrong apartment, okay, you're going to be hurt, you're going to cry. Okay, that's fine. But you're going to get $300 more off from your rent than you would have had you moved into the apartment that I had for you on the 1st. After I told you you would get into your place on the 1st, like not
Mhm.
only speak to me and say the 1st, but he had a plan when he put me in the wrong apartment so I could get more money off because he doesn't just care about me having a place, but he cared about my finances and how I could have more left over because I have a job, but I mean, I'm not rolling in dough like
Yeah.
savings, but I didn't have a ton of savings. Nobody, I'm not thinking that. When I walk into the wrong apartment on the 22nd, I'm God. Like I'm not thinking there must be something. There must be a reason. He's thinking that. That's what the miracle is. There's no logic in that how you sign me up for the wrong apartment, then it gets me more money out. An apartment is not going to do something to get you more from them. They
Yeah.
don't care about their tenants as much as they should.
Of course not.
They're not going to do that. But God is going to do that. And that's how you tell a testimony about a situation of an apartment. I don't just say, I got a place, yay. And so
Yeah.
that happens. I get a place. To God be the glory. I'm still in my place. I got moved in last August on the 1st, and I've been happy about everything that's in here, right? And so I slowly this year I'm starting to see things move back up. So I shared starting from dropping out because I feel like that's where it all just started going to
Yeah.
crap. And I feel like I suffered for years. I graduated in 2017, so it's been that's 7 years. This year
Yeah.
would have made 7 years of stuff like straight suffering for years and feeling like there was never any light of day. And it wasn't until the end of last year that I said to myself, if this is all happening and I didn't do anything wrong, then I think that this is all for other people. I think
Yeah.
that this is all so that way I can become relatable to people who I'm called to for the magnitude of what I've been called to.
Yes.
And I do a speaking engagement last month, and it was to a homeless organization, people who work with homeless people. And I know that they use other words for it now, but for the means of
What do they
understanding.
call it now?
Like unhoused. There's a lot of different words you can use now. I don't know all
Yeah.
of them. But the one that people mostly understand is, homeless. But I was
Mm-hmm.
able to talk in a way that I wouldn't have been about suffering to them, to help them to connect more with that community because of what I had experienced. And so I think that the entire testimony of my life, people always ask me, how are you? And like, I always think my answer is like, I'm not trying to be churchy, but
Right.
God is faithful. And I always say that. And I could be really good or I could be really bad, but I always say God is faithful. And
Yes.
because he is, but because he is, like, because I know that he is, because
Yeah.
I feel like while there were people who were saying to me, this is not God, God is not speaking to you, there was people saying to me, I admire your faith, you just keep trying, you keep doing what God's telling you to do, and it keeps seeming to go weird for you, but you
Yeah.
keep doing it. Your life is so intricate, it's so unique how God does things in your life. And I don't think that this is the end of that. I honestly think that I will continue to experience hard things for the sake of other people. And I think that's the point for everybody. I think
Yeah.
everybody's magnitude of it looks different in everyone's life, but that's what Jesus did. And so, oddly, I'm like, I don't know if I share the testimony the way you share it. I don't know. But I, I think that so far, the duration of my walk with God, it's only been since 2019 that I've been walking with God.
Mm-hmm.
That it was all to train up the child in the way that he should go. I
Yeah.
remember asking God, why? And he said, train up the child in the way that he should go. When you get saved, you don't just get to start going up and up and up. If you didn't get what you needed, God is going to give you what you did need to get. And it's going to
Yeah.
hurt, it's going to suck, but it's him training up his child in the way that he should go. And I
Yeah.
learned that through all this suffering, some of it was self-inflicted, but all of it was purposeful. Not having money was purposeful. I thought if I had $1,000 in my savings account, I'd be more attractive to men.
Girl,
What?
stop.
I'm so for real. Every
Yeah.
time I would get like 980 or $950 saved, I'd have
Mm-hmm.
to pay for something. It would disappear. And I just thought I'll be better. I'll be redeemed in some kind of way. I'll be looked at different for my past mistakes if I have something to show for now. And you
Well,
can be
we look at money as security, as a safety blanket, especially if you don't necessarily grow up having like money, right? And so when you get a little bit of it, you don't know what to do. Like you don't know what to do with it. And so we always have to pray, Lord, let us be a good steward of our funds. Um, you know, because money is a means to an end, right? But they also say money is the root of all evil. And it's because when it becomes our idol, right? Keeping our money or having money in the bank, we idolize it. And I might be talking to myself as well right now, but we idolize it because if God's not coming through right now, well, at least I have this money in the bank that's gonna provide for me if he's not doing it right now, you know? And one of the things as you've been talking and sharing your testimony that is really kind of like resounding in me is timing, because the Lord does speak and he will tell us to do something, move to Dallas, get the apartment, quit the job, drop out of school, or, the things that he speaks to us. And what is so important, and I hope people hear this in as you have shared, is that we have to make sure that we're hearing, right? We're listening and hearing what he's saying. But the extra step I think beyond it is praying for, okay, Lord, I hear what you're saying. When am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do this right now? Jesus, do I walk out of this job right now? Or are
now.
you saying that you're going to open the door over here for me and that I need to be preparing myself to walk through that door when it's time for me
Yeah.
to to leave school, to get the place, because the Lord loves us and he's so kind, right? He's so kind. And he's not gonna tell us exactly, right? Like, we look at the life of Abraham where he said, leave your family, right? Leave all that's familiar and go. It's like,
And
okay, well, where am I going? Right? Where am I going? When am I supposed to get here? How do I know that I'm there?
it,
How do I know? If I don't know where I'm going, how do I know if I'm there yet? But just stop and you're like, this is it. Like I just stop and look around. That's it. You can stay here, you know? And so we have to be in tune with the Holy Spirit so that we're hearing his voice clearly and pointing us to where we're supposed to be. Because once we get there, we're gonna have that extra set of peace. And like I was saying, the Lord is not the author of confusion. So he's not gonna put you in a situation where you have to be like, God, is this you? And so it's so important as we're growing in our walk, growing in our relationship with the Lord, and just as a person also. Like, because I don't think we ever stop growing.
For
Like, I'm older than you and I'm still at a place where like, Lord, well, what? Like, well, what, Jesus? Like, what we doing now?
sure.
you know? But it's a constant evolution and constantly staying connected to him because like you said, Jesus died on the cross. The Lord could have taken him off the cross. He didn't have to suffer that because he was fully man and fully holy, right? Fully man, fully God. He could have jumped off that cross and been like, yo, I heard enough. This was enough. I felt the pain.
Y'all doing too much.
I felt it. I felt it. Y'all's pain is too much for me to bear. I'm going back to my father. I'm going to be about my father's business. But no, he fully suffered. So if he suffered on that cross and he could get out of it, who do we think we are that we're not going to have any type of suffering, right? But in the midst of that suffering, when we're walking with the Lord and we're listening to what he is saying, and we know he has given us a calling. He has told us where we're supposed to go. We know it might hurt right now. It might be hurting right now. It's uncomfortable right now. There's no money in the bank. I got to stay at this person's house. I have to stay at this person's house. But I know that the Lord has directed me already. So he's going to make a way.
Yeah.
He's going to make a way. And so, it looks different for everybody, right? It looks different for every single person. And so thank the Lord that there were people in your life where they did open their door.
Yeah.
They opened up their door for you and said, even if it was for one night, that's one night that you didn't have to go out and search for somewhere to lay your head, you know? And so thank the Lord for a community around you. Because, girl, I knew you during that time. I had absolutely no clue. Absolutely no clue. And because thank God we don't look like what we're going through. Thank God that we don't look like what we're going through. Also, I want you to remember this. I want you to carry this with you every single day. If you're suffering and you're in a community of believers, you do not have to suffer alone.
Yeah.
Like you do not have to go hungry. Because if my sister is hungry and I got money and I'm eating, I'm not gonna let you sit there and look at me like, oh, that looks good. Like so keep that in mind because and the pride thing, we don't want people to know, like, because if they know, they might judge me. Because, well, what did you do to put yourself into this situation?
Like
Right?
Job,
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
friends, he must have
His
did
friends were
something.
doing the utmost. If Job had listened to his friends, he would have never been restored to the Lord. Okay.
Tell me what you did.
Because yeah, you clearly did this to deserve this. And as I was listening to you, you said, well, God, what did I do? What did I do? Sometimes it is things that we do,
For
right?
sure.
We hear from the Lord,
For
and the
sure.
Lord tells us, don't, no. And we're like, but I think I know better, and we do it. But sometimes we hear from the Lord, and in the midst of getting across that bridge, we got to go through that valley. We got to
Right.
go through the valley, and the valley is ugly. The valley is rough. The valley sucks, right? And so, but when you are in community and you have a community around you, it probably took a little bit of time because you're new out here, just finding people that you feel like you can trust and that you can lean on. But like saying, hey, you know what? It's rough right now. It's rough right now. I'm struggling. Like, I need help. There's nothing shameful in saying, I need help. I
Yeah.
need help. And like I said, I'm thankful that you had that community around you of somebody that opened the door, that you had the ability go home, you know. And one thing that you didn't share, but I saw that you shared on your Instagram was having the storage space.
Ah,
And I was like, that's when I saw your story, and I'm like, what? What is she talking about? Because she looked fine. Like, and I'm like, what in the world? What in the world? And so, yeah, thank God that we don't look like what we're going through, but thank God that we have community that can walk along with us and help us when we are crippled and when we
yeah,
can't for ourselves.
yeah,
And that is the blessing in it also. Of that, okay, I know you don't have it, but I'm gonna bring somebody into your life that can help you with it.
I can give it to you to
Yeah,
teach.
that can give it to you. So
I lived a good life.
yeah,
I lived a good suffering life. I think that when I was broke in Georgia, my best friend, her fiance, me and him are friends as well, and we would go out to eat. We was having our way, and it was all
yeah,
the time. But we was having our way. They never allowed me to be sitting at home like, oh yeah, we tried a new taco spot tonight. You ain't got no money.
yeah. See you when we get
That
back.
don't make no sense unless they
Hmm.
have it to give either. But it's in learning that now that I have resources, I give more than I spend on myself. I
Hmm.
really feel like, and not just financially, but giving period. I don't
Yeah,
even think we ask God enough. How could I give what more of myself or what I have can I give to compensate for the amount of people who might disobey you and never give?
yeah,
Like, and I don't think everybody should do that, but like even just asking God, he might
yeah,
say, give $1 more because there's 10 people that he knows that won't respond to the dollar. And wherever you're giving the dollar more at, they need that extra 10 because he thought about that centuries ago
yeah,
when he created the world.
yeah,
Um, God is just so involved and he's so intricate, and suffering is such a blessing. And it reminds you, I think at the tail end of it, I was like, God, we could have just did this in heaven. You got me down here because I didn't say that, but 2022, I wanted to, when I was saying in 22, I wanted to die. It wasn't even like just being all optimistic. No, I was trying to straight die. Just take me. This is dumb.
yeah,
Go and let me die because I don't get the point. I don't get the part. I'm trying. I'm putting my foot forward. And now that I've been through so much and I can't seem to get up again, I'm useless now because I can't seem to get over my trauma. So just let me go
mm.
now. And God is so fair because I don't want to die now. Okay. The
Yes,
only
praise
reason
him.
why I want to go to heaven is because heaven's still better than earth. Period. Don't go.
Period.
Still better. And I still
Yes,
say it to God, like, you don't think we could have just did all this in heaven? You're so good. I bet I would have just worshiped you. I know you don't want to be a dictator, but you're so good. If you would have just put me up there, I would have been like, let's do it. You so good. Let's
yes,
do it. But then I realized that's not a bad question to have because it's just a reminder that yes, that would have been better for you. But you're here for other people. And it's so real. It's so real. You're here for other people. So you gotta stay
yeah,
because I want to be reconciled to my children so bad that I'm looking for people who are willing to suffer for that reconciliation.
yeah.
And there's not a lot of people who will do that. And I'm not saying I'm always like, yeah, let's do it, God. But suffering
Hmm.
is such a blessing that I'm committing myself to talking about. That's why I was like, I don't even know if I shared my testimony the way I would have wanted to, but I did. I said everything that sounded like bad stuff. And I'm happy about that because that has been my life, is realizing what the beauty of suffering is. And I went to like a thing, a Galentine's thing, and they said, we're saying like, what does love mean? Like, what do we think about when we hear love? And I couldn't think of nothing but the word pain. And everybody's kind of like, oh. And I said,
Hmm.
but I mean, sure, houses and roses and all that are pretty, but you don't really know that the love is present until you go through pain and you see what comes up out of that purifying, that you know what's love and what's not. And I said, listen, I try to think of something cuter.
Yeah.
But that's the
The
best thing that
beauty from the
I'm not trying to
ashes.
go deep.
Yeah,
But when you ask me what did I think about when it comes to love, I could only think about pain
yeah,
and how beautiful suffering is. And some people suffer more. Everybody didn't get what happened to Job. Job, we didn't read about nobody else who had the same story. Maybe somebody else
yeah,
did, but
yeah,
everybody's suffering looks different, but everybody has to suffer. And I think that we will suffer for the rest of our lives. I don't mean that to say that life is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean that to say that it's just life. And if it's not for you, you're gonna have to do things that you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. But it's for the goodness and the betterment of somebody else. And if you can learn to lean into that, then we'll tell our testimonies differently in a way that they're impactful so idols can be removed. So that way people can get closer to God. Because my biggest frustration is that we don't know God. I hear so many conversations about what's demonic and what's not, and I'm not saying those are bad conversations, but I remember being in one and I remember saying, y'all, I think we just don't know God.
Yeah.
Because I said, God, all of these other religions, they're so uniform. They're so, we don't eat pork, we don't eat pork. We wrap our heads, and if you don't do the things that they do, you're called rebellious. It's not no, well,
Yeah.
there's another way to do it. I
There's no
said, but
grace.
it's so much ways to be a Christian these days. And God said to me, they have that unity with no absolute God, but they honor it. Y'all got an absolute God.
Mm-hmm.
God. But yet we don't look how the people in the other religions look. Not to say to strive for exactly what they're doing, but that uniformity of this is what God said, this is how it is. And I said, so then what is the problem? And God said, because y'all don't know me. They
That
know
part.
the gods that aren't absolute, they know those gods.
They do.
No, we got an absolute, true, living God. The only problem is we don't know him. And that's why the foolishness is occurring in private, in public. I think we won't ever know the fullness of God. It's not possible until I think maybe the Bible says when you get to heaven, you might
Yeah.
know more. I don't know. I haven't
Yeah.
read the whole, but
Yeah.
we don't know what we need to know or pursue what we need to know. And that's why everything is just so, oh, I gotta go through this. Oh, I gotta do that. And I'm not saying it shouldn't hurt. Jesus cried, Jesus did all that, baby. Please cry.
Yeah.
But when you get done, when that season and that phase is over, look forward, look at more. And it's that knowing God is experiencing that hard stuff in life. It's leaning
Yeah.
in more. It's treating people better. It's being disciplined and getting rid of what takes you away from God. I'm having a hard time. I'm off Instagram, TikTok. I'm not watching TV right now. And then I find myself scrolling now on YouTube Shorts. You don't even watch YouTube Shorts. You're just looking for something to fill the space you opened up to have more time for God. Like,
Yeah.
we got to know God.
We got to know
That's
God.
what all of this testimony was about for me. I got to know more of God and be more
Yes.
like God, and I would do it all again.
Yes. And you hit the nail on the head. We don't know God. We just know the perception of what we want God to be, right? We want God to be our genie. But aside from that, like one of the biggest things that you talked about is like um not appreciating the gift more than the giver, right?
Right,
And so when those things become our idol, and that's why we get it all wrong. And
right.
so it's just so important for us to know God, to have the relationship with God, to spend time with him. And it is, I don't know how you're surviving being off of everything. I think it's time for another hobby, I
Ciao.
guess. Like another hobby maybe. But we have to show we have to show people who God is for real. We have to, and by showing who God is for real, that's showing the good and the bad.
But in realizing if you're living for God, if you're submitted, you like I've been doing, you're not perfect, but you're living for
Yeah,
God, then what even looks bad is good.
it
It's
is.
that's why I think when I think about my life and I think about everything that I've done to try to honor God, and people are like, God would never say that. God would never, like, I tried to get help from other places at the time of being in my space, and they were like, yeah, that just doesn't sound like it makes sense for us to help you, or I just don't think God would tell you to do something like that. Why? Because how do we read the Bible? Like I learned, we can read the Bible, you learn nothing at all.
Yeah, you can read it as a
You
book.
can read it and know nothing about the Lord, and
Hmm.
somehow you read it. How did you learn nothing? You can read it and learn nothing. And it says, well, if we want to see God do a new thing, but every time we see a new thing, we reject it. How do we believe that haven't seen it, ears haven't heard. But when we get to seeing and hearing, we go, oh, God don't do stuff like that. Because then again, we don't know him, so we can't look at something and say, that looks bad, but that's God.
Mhm.
Jesus on the cross, baby, that looks, I don't even know what it looked. I wasn't there, but I watched the Passion.
Yeah, but still you can kind of
Look
see it. It looked
horrible.
terrible,
But
terrible.
it was God. And if more people can say, this is what my life looks like, but this is good.
Hmm.
Huh?
Yeah,
This is good.
yeah.
It's good.
It's
It's
gonna be
all
good.
good. When
Hmm.
Jesus, when God was killing people in the Old Testament, me and my homegirl talked about this the other day. She said, girl, when he split the floors open and killed them people, I thought, I know you good, but
But
that
this,
don't sound right to me. That don't, okay, God, I know you good, I serve you, but that don't sound, and it's making yourself go through the journey of saying, I want my mind to see what looks bad as good if he says it's good. So
yeah,
then when you see what looks good, some things look very good.
but it's
And
not.
you look like they came from God.
Yeah,
Ain't a lick of the Lord. When
nothing.
God took them people and ate them up out that ground, before he did it, Moses said, if God does a new thing, unlike what you've seen, you'll know that he's leading me. So the new thing he did was bad. What? How did
Hmm.
good God do something new, but the new looked horrible because it was good?
Because of what the outcome is. Like, and
This is
so
why we
that's the
have to
thing.
tell the whole story. We
The
can't
whole
just say
story.
he swallowed people up because then it
Yeah,
looks bad. But if we say what was in that, what the idol, all of that was in it, okay, I see how it's good. That's why we got to say more or
yeah.
say less of what we've been saying and speak up a little more about the stuff that matters that will get people to know more about God.
Yeah, and we have to, and that's what the other thing, we have to know it for ourselves. So
Yeah.
we have to know this word. Like we have to know what is in this book because otherwise people are gonna be telling you all kinds of things. And that's the thing with these other religions that like that you mentioned. Like they know. They know. We walking around calling ourselves Christians and we don't even know what's in here. We like followers of Christ. And so like and it's hard. I don't know what's so hard about opening this book and reading it like that will put you straight to sleep. Like you can't sleep at night. Open up Leviticus. I'm reading Leviticus right now. Okay, open up Leviticus.
I
You
was reading
will
that like, ooh, okay.
like, Lord, what is this clean and unclean? Hoof split, chewing grass. Like, what does this have to do with anything, right? And I'm like, as I'm reading, I'm like, this don't even apply anymore. But we still have to know what happened so we can appreciate where we are also. But if we want to know God, and if we want to represent the Lord appropriately, we have to know who He is for ourselves. We can't know who He is based off of what somebody else said. We have to know it because that's how we get like people not like people not knowing and not understanding and following wrong preaching and wrong things because you don't know what the word says. And so, yes, you can hear a good sermon, you can hear somebody give a good speech. But if it's not founded directly in this word, it's founded in what they think it is, because that's not false teaching, right? Because it's not like somebody's deliberately trying to mislead you. If they're speaking, it could be that their understanding is not fully where it needs to be. So that's why we have to be able to understand for ourselves and know for ourselves. And then we can have that uniformity that these people that are following other religions have. But if we're just basing it, then we're not following God. We're following whoever is preaching to us at the time. Right. And
Yeah.
so like it's so important to keep yourself deeply rooted. And then when you're deeply rooted in the word, when the suffering happens, you know, I don't know what's coming, but I know it's gonna be good. And
It's
that's
got to
it.
be.
Yeah,
And I don't know what's coming. I know it's gonna be good, and I know it's already good.
it's
Like you
already
have to
done.
think to yourself. There's something, anything now that I experience that can feel I'm horrible. I'd be like, there has to be, where's the goodness? It has to be good. If I already know that I'm submitted, if I already know that I'm on the plan that God has for me concerning that thing, and something happens that I'm like, that shouldn't be on the plan, then I
Yeah.
have to say to myself, it has to be good.
Because if God's in it, it's good.
Good. And God
Hmm.
will do anything to purify you and prune out of you what is unlike him, because the more we're unlike him, the more there's division. The more we become purified, the closer we can be. So he
Yes.
will do anything, even if it had to hurt you a little bit.
Yeah.
He hurt you a little bit. I
Mm.
think one time I seen Pastor Manny said there's a difference between hurt and harm. He's not
Yes.
harming you, but baby,
Yeah.
you can hurt.
You
I'm
can
not
hurt.
gonna lie to you. You're getting hurt because
Yeah.
you're human. But it's
Yeah.
gonna bring you closer to God. And because he wants that closeness, he has to do it because his nature is too good that it can't exist in dark. So if you fully dark, I take you through a few things because your darkness is hindering what I'm trying to be and how I'm trying to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. And I think you said exactly what the Lord needed you to say today. And like the message in it really is gonna resound. It hits because I just keep coming back to it. It's not the gift, it's the gifter. It is
Yes.
not the gift, it's the gifter. And we appreciate the gift so much more when we recognize what we had to walk through to get it.
Yep.
So yes.
If you get everything, then it won't. And the last thing I'm gonna say is one good sentence.
Yes.
Be married to God. Be married to God.
Yes.
I think people make that a weird thing. And they're like, you can't be married to God. That's so weird. That's so weird. Oh my
We're
God,
the
that
bride.
sounds spiritual. Y'all trying to be so set apart. Oh my God.
I sure am.
And I just learned in class, they talked about holiness. And in the church, you always hear holiness, the definition is set apart.
Mm-hmm.
God said, holiness is not set apart. Holiness is your being closer to God. And the benefit of it is you become set apart because you're close to him. So we spend our time thinking, how can I be set apart? How can I break away? How can I break away? Instead of thinking, how can I be closer? How can I be closer? And then you get what people communicate is what holiness really is. And it's not.
Yeah.
It's being connected to God. They don't call marriages holy because the people don't go to the park where there be other girls at. They call the
Yeah.
marriages holy because, oh my God, you and your husband are so close. Be married to the Lord. Even if you
Yes.
marry, be married to the Lord. Your husband should be married to the Lord.
Yes. Yes. We are the
Everybody
bride of Christ. Yeah.
be
The church.
married
We are the bride.
to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it in a practical sense. If you ain't never talking to him, your marriage sucks.
That part.
If y'all always arguing, you always arguing. Every time you get to praying, you like, God, I just thought. Your marriage is not
It's
good.
not what it's supposed to be.
If you wouldn't take it in the natural, don't. If you wouldn't take it in the natural, why would you take it in the spirit where it really is, where that true and best relationship you will ever have with God is?
Yeah.
No thanks. No thanks. Be married to the
Yes.
Lord. This last thing I'm saying. Be married to the Lord.
And when you're in that relationship with the Lord, it's not going to be that tension. It's not going to be that argument. Yes, some things are going to happen and you're going to be like, Lord, like, well, what, why, how? And you
Right.
might have dissatisfaction, but his answer is always going to be so much better. That's going to bring you like, okay, I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
I might not understand it right now, but you get
But I'll
to
understand
another
later.
place, you look back and you understand it.
I'll understand
So,
later. We
yeah.
let people lead us on earth. We don't understand everything our pastors do. People don't understand everything their husbands do, and we call it submission. So be submitted.
Or
So
friends,
be submitted then.
be submitted.
If you could listen to people on the earth who tell you to do something and you trust what they're saying, it's like, I don't got to understand. I just got to do it. Oh, okay. Where do you think that come from? All good things also come from the Lord. That's what the Bible say.
Yes, ma'am.
All of us, me and everybody included.
Yes, that's it. That part, be submitted. That's what we leaving with. Be submitted. So, well, thank you for your time today, Alexis. I really appreciate it, and thank you for being just open and honest and transparent, and just sharing from your heart. I will forever be grateful for you saying yes today. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know that what's coming down the road for you is going to just blow your mind. It's going to be more than what you even think is going to happen because you are being under submission and you are listening and walking in the path that the Lord is calling you to. And so just continue on that way, continue growing, continue learning, finish up your schooling because the Lord is calling you higher and above. So keep doing what you're doing, girl.
Thank you. I enjoyed this so much. And I love to
Yes,
talk.
yes, yes, yes. Right? That you know what, me too. So I was like, I gotta get Alexis on here because she's gonna tell her story and we'll chat. And so thank you again. And thank you everybody for being on here with us on We Just Talking. I'll be back next week with a new episode.